Today I'll show you how we made this fabulous custom terrain board to wargame one of the most iconic battles of the ancient Greek world. This was a really fun build to do because of the dramatic topography, and best of all, most of the materials involved are very affordable. This battlefield is just under 4x4 in size, and the base layer is 2-inch polystyrene insulation board. To save some money, I decided to tear apart one of my old tables, a custom Shiloh board I built 10 years ago. Ripping this thing apart made a bit of a mess, but the 2-inch thick base layer is really all I'm after. Now it's time to start the new table. Here's the scenario map, which doesn't have quite as much topographic detail as I need, so I've sourced several more maps that show more of the terrain. This map is one I'll lean on heavily. Modern pictures of Thermopylae today are also quite useful to see the steepness of the mountain cliffs. The ocean has receded considerably over the past couple thousand years, and archaeologists believe that the shoreline, in 480 BC, was roughly where you see the modern highway today. For our scenario, I want the narrowest choke point of the hot gates to be just one base width, or about 40 millimeters wide. This is the fabled Phocian wall. With our initial layout sketched, it's time to start building upward, and we have a lot of height to recreate. To build up that high, I want to use something cheaper and less dense than polystyrene insulation. Instead, I'm using super cheap white styrofoam panels. You can buy bags of these from Home Depot for a fraction of the cost of polystyrene. I'm going to layer the sheets to get our necessary height. Shaping this white EPS is messy, but very quick to do. It breaks apart quite easily. With about 30 minutes of work, I have the basic skeleton of our topography complete. Now I'll glue down each layer using liquid nails, and I'll stack a bunch of random crap from my basement on top just to help it dry flat. After the glue dries and we do some more sloping and shaping with a knife, a handheld vacuum makes quick work of the mess. And now it's time to make a different sort of mess. I'm mixing water, flour, salt, and white glue to make a papier-mâché paste. Cut strips of newspaper and dip them into the paste. Covering a board of this size took me about 30 minutes, and once this first layer is applied, it has to dry overnight before you apply a second full layer of papier-mâché. I do like to go back and cover up any bad seams or gaps with a final round of touch-up. I realize this looks pretty rough at the moment, but you'll be amazed how smooth and natural the terrain looks after a coat of paint. Before that, we need an ocean. A tube of latex caulk will do the trick nicely. Just smooth it out with a flat blade, and then I like to hit the surface with some water to make it extra smooth on top. I'll pop in a few polystyrene rocks and dab the shoreline to create the look of crashing tides. Now we're ready to bring this whole thing together with paint. I do a base layer of gray and dry brush 2 lighter shades on top. It looks like this before we move on to the flocking stage. I'm using multiple shades of green turf on this table. I also use multiple shades of blue to wet blend the ocean as the flock dries. Whenever everything is dry, it's time to hit this board with a heavy spray of scenic cement. It took a massive bag of clump foliage to cover the forested areas of the battlefield. Here is the mountain track I'm depicting for the Persian flank attack. Historically, that would have been much narrower and a rougher path, but for playability with miniatures, I represented a more generous pathway. The foliage looks frosted here because when I'm done, I spray everything again with another heavy coat of scenic cement to lock it all in place. Next up, we'll use a bottle of triple thick to paint the surface of the ocean. When it dries, the water has a perfect glossy sheen. Painting triple thick is way, way easier than pouring resin. This is a trick I highly recommend. Oh, and what about the famed Phocian wall? Well, that's just a bead of glue and some kitty litter. No, that's not a cat, it's my puppy Lucille. And there you have it. Now, we are ready to refight the Battle of Thermopylae. And remember, you can use these exact same techniques to build your own miniature tabletops. If you want to see this table in action, be sure to check out our next Wargame episode. And if you want to see other terrain tutorials on Little Wars TV, we have plenty of those too. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.